Hello everyone. Bit sorry that we are a bit running late because of the scheduling was bit cramped by over timing the previous session. So sorry about a few minutes delay, but I think it has been probably good for you to get ready yourself. So we'll start with the short refuge and four immeasurable prayers to renew our confidence in the truthfulness of Dharma and that control that we can employ to mind our thoughts and ways of doing things in a skillful way. So remembering the triple gem and remembering to practice kindness to each other and so on, very important. So we will recite the four immeasurables, refuge and four immeasurables first. Oyenda Buddha Dharma Sangha Aite Refuge Lodgem by virtue Oye Handala Ajare Buddha Vojuebe Henda Buddha Dharma Sangha Aite Refuge Ladem by virtue Oye Ajare Buddha Vojuebe and Abu Dharma Sangha Aite Refuge Ladem by virtue Oye Handala Ajare Buddha Vojuebe Mehobis happiness and the cause of happiness may they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering may they never bow from the happiness that no suffering may they dwell equanimity free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a power of happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion to those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and cause of suffering. May they know a power of happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion to those near and far. Godin Juden Intelligence and Predisposition of it, where the Yatanda Dharma, Agrelo and Common Vehicles. So once again, thank you very much for everybody who is supporting each other by joining and signing up to do this course. Listen to the very amazing writings, which are realizations of the celebrated Indian Buddhist monk Shantideva, whose writings are published in the name of Bodhisattva's Way of Life, and this particular text called the Bodhisattva's Way of Life is a way of life that we need to learn to emulate. Way of life that people usually don't have because they're so self-centered. They're all only taught to look after themselves and so on. Always think of first person, by the first person, Whereas Bodhisattva's way of life is put others first, and you be yourself to be the last one to serve others. Serving others is much more useful living than try to be one who take advantage of everything. So it's a very amazing kind of idea that we should learn to look after others altruistically, not to think of one's own well-being all the time. Because it's something we've been doing a whole lot of time, all the time. You don't need schooling for this. You don't need to attend a class. We are so good at just thinking of ourselves. But yet we are not reaping a lot of benefit, but only reaping the drags and harms caused by this self-centeredness. So we need not schooling anything to how to look self-centered, how to remain self-centered. So that's why he said how to walk the Bodhisattva's way of life. Bodhisattvas are the courageous ones who have discovered the selfishness as the enemy of all enemies. And one who learns to see that, not just assume it is, but one has to really see all our greatest problems we thought was done by others, but were actually the tricks caused by our own selfishness. So Shantideva has launched this attack on this very enemy within. And so that's why he's the spiritual warrior who is waging this most important fight against the ego and try to practice selflessness and serve other sentient beings, be that your mother or father or friends or even some very difficult people. You should think of their well-being, how I can tolerate, how I can accept some blames, how I can accept some of the accusations without retaliating, how I can accept some of the put-downs without feeling bad, but let it be for whatever it's worth. Maybe it will exhaust my own past selfish karmas. So Bodhisattva's way of life is almost like a vow to take up selflessness and give up selfishness. That's really is Bodhisattva's way of life. But Shantideva very skillfully weaves his thoughts in 10 chapters. We are currently in this particular term studying his 5th chapter called Chapter of Introspection, which is the Bodhisattva need to be very introspective, Selfish people are always spying on other people's faults and flaws, and as if they could correct the world, and people who they think they have faults. But Bodhisattvas have no time to waste for that. So it's introspective. So one who wish to train in any sort of trainings that they can make contribution to the world, first must train to mind their own mind. So this very chapter is about how to mind your own mind, which we call, therefore is called introspection. We have read the first 12 verses last week, and last verse we read constituted that if you think that people should be controlled and corrected and sort of prove them wrong and so on, that he says such unruly people are just everywhere, and you could not possibly correct all of them one by one, even though you are so committed to doing that, But instead, if I can conquer this very irritable, agitated mind, I will naturally have no enemy out there that I need to be worried about. So this is very amazing teaching. A lot of people who's complained is not their thought. They go to friends or mentors or counselors or whatever who complain about what some people did to them. Very few people go to others saying, this is my mind is doing this, what can I do, how can I tame my mind, this is horrendous, I cannot live with this mind, I just wanted to leave this mind behind, what do you think about leaving this mind, so very few people do that. So Shantideva here says, we have to go and conquer this very agitated mind. If we conquer this agitated mind, then all the so-called unruly people are naturally conquered. So that's the verse we finished last week, and then he uses the analogy in the next verse. He says that to cover all the earth with a piece of leather, if we have kind enough leather to cover the whole earth, would there be enough leather to be found so that we can cover the whole earth so that no thorns or no thorns or things can prick our feet? He says, wouldn't it be better, instead of trying to find enough leather to cover the whole world, why don't you find enough piece of leather to make your soles of your shoes? If you just find a little piece of leather that you can cover your soles of your feet, then it would be like being able to cover the whole universe with leather. So this analogy says that because where you're going to put your feet that's what you need to cover. So what really concerns is your mind, So where would you find enough leather to cover the whole? Therefore, instead of wasting time to find enough leather to cover the whole world, you should instead find enough leather to cover your soles of feet. That means that instead of trying to conquer all the people out there, alleging them as unruly and unpleasant and unreasonable to you, why don't you conquer your unreasonable mind? Because if you conquer your unreasonable mind, then all of those unruly people are naturally conquered by that. So this probably is a very good, because sometimes we might not think the whole world is full of people like that, but there's always few people wherever you go that there appears to be the problem. Somebody is contemptuous to you or try to be a hindrance to you, creating obstacles, opposition to you. We just wish we could stop them. We can just get rid of them. People do all sorts of them, But they don't realize the more they waste time to do that, the more they will be creating causes of enmity and competitiveness and vengeful thoughts, of vindictiveness. All is caused by this kind of unskillful mind. So therefore, instead of wasting time doing that, you should try to change your thought about them. Instead of trying to change people, change your thought about them. Then it's like you are putting on a new soles of your feet is covered by leather, and wherever you go, you won't be hurt by any thorns. Why? Because that's more efficient. So instead of trying to change a place, always change your work or change this or that, always try to change your attitude. Have some degree of humility. Have some degree of compassion. Have some degree of respect to the other, and then you don't have to always change your boss or change your workmate or change your friends or change. You realize it's tolerable. You change. You're more efficient. You just learned how to change the real thing. That's the motherboard. You've been able to change your mother, your mind. Your mind has to be changed. Likewise, he says, verse number 14. Likewise, all external things, I could not possibly repel all the unpleasant objects or people outside there. But if I can repel this very mind, all the others are naturally. I don't even need to change them, because they're only a reflection of my mind anyway. So when I change my mind, when I sort of convert my mind, can make the mind converted, if your mind is convertible, recyclable or something, then you can see all the others are. There's no need for you to change other things, because you can carry this plan with you wherever you go, because if your mind is blind and very, very convertible, you don't have to convert everything outside, So it's just like any example you can think about, in the maybe 50 years ago they didn't have air conditioning in the cars, They only have the air conditioning in the houses, but they could just drive, and then they realized it would be good to keep the car cool, Maybe they put a small fan. So, and then some places, taxis in third world country, they put a little fan to keep the car going cold. But nowadays they design, they just put the whole thing in there, and then you don't have to do anything, because the whole system is inbuilt. Likewise, if you repel the bad thoughts in your mind, then you don't need to stop bad objects. Bad objects are just simply reflection and projection of your mind. When the projector is fixed, and then projection doesn't have to be fixed, because you don't have to project certain things if you don't want to, because the projection only project what you put to project. So you don't put the things to project. You just have to change the film. You just have to change the film. You don't have to change the screen to which you're projecting. They don't realize. You think it's the fault of the screen, don't you? No, you don't realize you can just change the film, and then you can project the different things. So you don't need to get rid of this one screen to replace another screen. You just change the film like that. It says one who's able to clear one who has successfully, fruitfully cleared his mind. His mind. So this is verse number 15. 15, it says, a clear intent can fructify and bring us birth in the lofty realm of the Brahma. Means if you have very pure, clear intent, it will bring us good rebirth. Good rebirth like that of the lofty realm of the Brahma, or even say for us, those of us who enjoy some reasonably good kind of fortunate circumstances. Many of us have got many fortunate circumstances. These didn't come from no cause. These are not causeless kind of boons came from nowhere. These are the result of good intent. So the acts of the body and speech are less. They do not generate like results. So this means that when you have a clear, conscious mind, because it says when you have a mind is very clear, then the mind produces the type of wholesome results that you seek to gain. Yeah, you don't have to put your body and speech and all the things in a strenuous effort to bring some miraculous result. If you have a mind that is much more clear, it can produce better results. So don't work too hard physically or verbally. Just do some inner mental work. If you do some transformative work on your mind, then you will see the result they produce. Your whole thinking strategies change, and as a result of that, you don't have to work so hard physically, or you don't have to yell or scream or like that verbally, because you know how to mind your own thoughts, and you don't have to laboriously put a lot of physical and verbal effort and that to produce some extraordinary result. So you don't. They do not generate any similar result like that of mind can produce. Bodily effort and verbal effort have some function, but not as good as the result that clearly trained mind can produce the result. So this is exactly echoing the chapter on introspection. That if you become cognizant of which you should physically train, maybe people spend a lot of hours on the playground or work or training. They train a lot of things just to do the same thing again. Physically, so laborious, so tiring. But if you can train your mind, it will be much more fruitful training than the training of the body. These most people are not free. They have training. It's all running on the playground, up and down with another 30 other people. Yeah, they're training to tackle each other or catch each other or throw a ball higher than the other cannot reach. Even that, they produce very disappointing result. Only produce disappointing result. They thought they had training to jump high, and they broke their neck even more effectively than those who couldn't jump high. So that shows. Whereas if you have a mind that is trained properly, it can produce much more wholesome and productive results. So this is talking about the weighing the benefit of training the mind versus weighing the benefit of training your body. So this So this is where the next verse is important. No matter what recitation and asceticism you were to practice for a very long time. But if your mind, which is the primary mental consciousness, is being distracted, even though you're physically, verbally reciting and observing, maybe it's fasting and solitude and maybe even sort of some noble silence and all of that. Even if you did all of that for a very long period of time, but your mind itself is scattered while you're doing that, the Buddha said it has very little benefit. So that shows that no matter what amount of physical effort or verbal effort and asceticism you were to practice, if your primary mental consciousness is distracted, whatever recitation and asceticisms and solitude and strict precepts you will observe, it would not produce a lot of result. It's almost like meaningless. It's a waste of time. And so this is mainly saying that training of the body, speech, and mind training is far more important than us observing asceticism, and whatever people do, a lot of abstention. They abstain this, they abstain that, they have list of lots of things they abstain, but they never abstain to mind the mind. They don't realize their greed, their self-importance, their pride, that they're very good at discipline, they observe this long in retreat. That kind of arrogance is more dangerous. So even if you did observe the physical hardships and abstention from socializing or eating certain things, or drinking or fasting, and not even talking to people, and not even coming out into the populace, and retreat yourself very quiet, no matter how long a time that you spend there, but if your mind is wandering, and that is very fruitless. So it means that even though you are among many difficult people, you're maybe you have very difficult family situations, but even if they're difficult, but if your mind is very kind towards them, tolerant with them, you might be doing a good time in terms of however much hardship that physically that you might be exposed to, but your mind is completely in peace. So then it will be much more meaningful than try to have very artificial training of a physical body, but mind itself completely uncontrolled, uncontained. So that the Buddha himself says the importance of learning to train your mind, and otherwise, if your mind is scattered and did all of those hardships, it will be just fruitless. So he says the one who misses the great secret of this mind, one who fails to know the great secret of this mind, which is the most important of the Dharma, which means minding the mind. Then even if the person wish to gain happiness and wish to prevent suffering, he will fail miserably. He will fail miserably to find happiness and get rid of suffering if he doesn't know the secret of this mind. So one needs to know the physics of the mind, the behavior, the psychology of your own mind. So that's very important, Even if you wanted to succeed in life, and you don't want to go through a lot of hardships, and you want to really make sure your future's good, or prove your future, or whatever. But if your mind is never tamed or understood or controlled, do not know the psychology of your suffering, and if you don't know the secret of the mind, if you don't know that, no matter what great many things you have to assist pleasure or temporary comfort or whatever, they will all be proved to be fairly waste of time. He says Teda kin teme kinan kyam. Yeah, Teda teme kinan kyam means that they will prove to be very little result. If one who doesn't know his mind, because remember this chapter is all about how to mind the mind, and therefore one needs to know how tricky the mind is. What it informs us without without actually testing, mind itself could be quite blatantly ignorant. If we are not careful of our mind, this mind itself can make us completely take us to some dark places we have no intention of going there. That's why meditation, being able to meditate, will enable us to watch where the mind is about to take us to, and if we do not know the behavior of the mind, our mental, if we do not know the secret of this mind, no matter how much you seek happiness, no matter how much you do not want suffering, they will all prove to be fruitless. So it means you will be completely waste of effort. A lot of people's life, they realize they waste their effort. Why? They thought they lost their mind for this and that, or for status or positions, for reputation, for gains, for worldly dharmas, and so on, and they lost their mind. And then they realize how much it has slowed the emotional and personal, spiritual growth of the person. So therefore, if you really wanted to make anything successful in your life, spiritual or general life career, you should really understand your mind. If you don't know the secret of this mind, most of them will prove to be very fruitless. Therefore, I, at all costs, must get to know this mind, and I must uphold, I must guard properly this very mind of mine. So this is me. So now this introspective person is talking to. Now from here onwards, I will keep a watch on my mind, and I will guard it properly and carefully. Beside the guarding. Beside the discipline and conduct of guarding the mind, what's the use of all the other conduct and discipline, he says. To human Buddhist. Yeah, what is the use? What is the use? What is the use of all the other discipline? Get up early, do 2 jobs, or whatever material advantage or whatever you try to do. What would be that? You will lose your mind to them one day, and then you realize how much time you wasted, how many years you lost on that. Complete waste of time. So therefore, there is no greater discipline and a career than to guard and guide this mind instead of training in all other trainings. And therefore, I will properly guard this mind, and this is the work that I have. You can say I've got a new job. You can say I've got a new job. No, yeah, what's that? Oh, difficult. So difficult to find the mind, and then just to herd the mind. I'm a mind herder. In Zen, they go ox herding, herding the ox. We're trying to herd the ox is at least visible, isn't it? Ox is visible. The mind is not visible. I'm herding the mind herder. So I've taken up the job to herd my mind and guard it and guide it and protect it. And this is the highest of all the. What would be the need for me to have many other disciplines? No, man. Mm-hmm. So that's the verse number 18. And then number 19 says, when you are among big crowds, unruly crowds, and who are very, very like a big mob crowd, we move with care. If we have a little injury to our limbs, we don't want to go in the crowd because they're just stampeding, So we make sure that our little physical injury will not be sort of harmed because there are so many uncareful people, big crowd, and they're running and they're rushing and they're stampeding. Maybe there's a revolution or some sort, maybe like that. Of course, if we happen to be surrounded by so many rowdy members of the crowd, we will make sure that our injured part of the limb doesn't get to be touched by them. So likewise, he says, when we live with the company of unruly people, our wounded minds we should not fail to guard. So many people are very, 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 very sort of very, very unstable. They could straight away attack you, or they can straight away attack somebody, or they could straight away say something, or whatever. At that time, I should regard not what they may do, but my own very volatile mind that is like injured arms. I should make sure that my injured mind, so weak mind, can easily get disturbed. So I have to mind this mind itself, so that it doesn't get exposed to the other people. Like you avoid a crowd stampede when you have injury. You should stay away, and you should not be allowed to get out. Basically, likewise, I should guard my mind, guard my injurious mind, guard my very weak mind. So says, why would I not guard this injured mind? Your mind might be really resentful and angry or negative, or so that you should make sure that this negative mind is contained and restrained, instead of being exposed to the crowd that are so unruly around you. So this is talking about how many times we got hurt by attachment, by over expectation, unrealistic expectation, and angry over such a small thing. We were completely mistaken, but we thought we had a legitimate reason to be angry. So we got hurt many times. So we have injuries. People have a lot of injuries, Lots of people feel stress. They are physically fine, but they got a lot of stress because they're injured emotionally, and they're exposing themselves to the stampedes or ordinary crowds, and they talk to the negative people, and they talk some different useless subjects, and then they become so hurt, These days they realize, some of the TV shows, they say, oh, if you need mental health care, please dial this number. They shouldn't show the damn thing. That would be good. They should show some movies or something. Then they say, oh, if you have any concerns, please dial this number. Why are they showing such materials at all? We shouldn't be screening those violent, useless, negative, harmful, socially very destabilizing shows. You have no idea what kind of, even adults shouldn't watch those violent movies. Why our society become so affected? Because they're so easily incited by the sort of thing they become exposed to. So we should mind this very weak mind that can be easily instigated or provoked by the unruly company. So we should guard rather injurious mind from the crowd of unruly people. So this means that we should mind our mind with the great care, and we should not fail to guard our mind. And instead of guarding from different people, we should guard our mind more importantly. Yes. So if we have to carefully protect our wounds from being scratched or wounded further, because we feel the cut and wounds or bruises will deteriorate and will prevent from recovering because it will scratch and rub against some rough things. Why should I not guard my wounded mind? If we have to be so careful that the physical injury might be worsened by exposing to such crowd, then why should we not guard our mind, wounded mind already? There's already poor me feeling for fear of being crushed beneath the cliffs of hell, they call it. So why shouldn't I guard my mind from being injured by becoming exposed to unruly creatures. So if just to recover small physical injury, we're willing to take half a dozen days sickness leave. Sickness leave. Oh yeah, just why don't we say sadness leave? Sadness leave. People should take stress leave, isn't it? Nowadays they have stress leaves. Maybe some mental health leave. Maybe some of the ministers are taking mental health leave. Yes, it's so much pressure. Yeah, they should go away somewhere and try to mind this injured mind instead of combating in this very aggressive and very materialistic society. Take some leave and try to heal your mind from being so injured and so battered by the difficulty. So why should we not guard this injured mind from the danger of becoming wounded further? So because of that, we should watch our mind how to recover quickly in solitude, away from people or away from activities, away from competitive worldly world. We should learn to go somewhere that we are not going to be crushed like in hell. You're going to crush by mountains of head of animal head like creatures who one has oneself cause harm or kill them. They will manifest there and to harm us. So therefore, if I'm very conscious, I'm very fearful of such physical injuries. Why shouldn't I mind my mind from being injured and hurt? So it's just talking about how to guard our mind. You know? If this is how I act and live, then even in the midst of for unruly people, or even with company of fair women, they call it fair women in India. Fair woman was very rare because India got dark skin. All is well. My diligent observance of the vows will not decline. So as a 7th century Indian monk, their monastic vow of keeping themselves from the company of generally all unruly people, particularly the objects of desire or objects of fanciful company. If one is always and if one is thinking of such people, and I will make sure that even should I be in the company, even should I be in the company of fair-skinned woman, he says, or even with the fair woman, all is well. So even if I'm company of the fair-skinned woman, I will not let my vows be degenerated. That's what Shantideva was talking about, how to guard your mind, So because it is my own mind that I need to guard, and so even if such company, I'll make sure that my mind is not fall into the trap of temptation, and I will observe with diligence the vows and not let it suffer degeneration. So this kind of this is an example of what constitute introspection. Of course, the chances of a strict 7th century Buddhist monk in the company of a fair-skinned woman is not that great, because they're not allowed to be in the same room. Actually, without the third person, they call it, without the third person. But he says that even should I be in such company, I'll make sure that I would guard my mind and not let it fall into the temptation of one's desire or distraction. So this is giving a kind of visual image of one being so powerful in controlling one's emotions, because one is it's talking about just the controlling one's mind, controlling one's mind. And even if should one be in such company. So this is very, very true to writing of a Buddhist monk, because they always wrote by monks, and they always talk about fair-skinned women. They don't talk about dark-skinned women. In India, because you can see that's where India is very mainly people full of very dark skin. Not a lot of fair skin. There's some in the northern area, but south is all dark. South people, Indians, very dark. Not dark like the Africans, but still very dark-skinned people. And so they think that fair-skinned people are something that is one should be desiring. So they always talk about that because people who are fair-skinned people look for the tanned skin, So it's all delusion, really. It's all delusion. Some people want a tanned skin, they're too white, and they deliberately trying to become tan skin. Anyway, it's a very the old writings of Indian Buddhist monks talk about the fair-skinned woman is, even if I were to in such a company of fair-skinned woman, I must remain vigilant to observe my vows so that it doesn't suffer the degeneration due to that, because it means I will guard my mind from craving or desiring, but I will instead train my mind, because introspection is one needs to train one's mind, no matter where you are, who you are. Remember, he used the example of you being rubbed against stampede of crowd, and that's unpleasant because so. But here he's talking about desire and how to guard one's mind from desirous perceptions, desirous projections. Is basically desirous projections, and knowing that it's projection of one's mind, I will exercise self-restraint and not let my vow be degenerated by such kind of temptations. Talking about let my property and honor all grow less. So it says even if my honor, property, wealth, the savings, and your body and your whatever all may decline, may grow, and everything will be sort of degenerated and lose the values or something. And as well as all other virtues may also suffer the degeneration, but my mind should never be allowed to be degenerated. So meaning, even if your wealth, gain, honor, your income, your status, your goodness, your perspective, your reputation, and all of that, even all of them may be allowed to be degenerate, but my mind should never be allowed to be degenerated. What does it mean? Mind should not be allowed to degenerate means mind should not be seeking worldly gains, respect, and craving, and positions or reputations. All. If the mind is not attached to them, of course, those things are not something that really is a main thing. Even you lose the status, even you lose this respect, even you lose your income, even you lose your savings, even you lose your friendship. But these are only token. If your mind is attached to them, then you don't have to lose them. Even you have lots of them, you still would not have contentment, but you're still greedy. But therefore, I must not let my mind ever to become degenerated. Degenerate meaning I should not let the mind lose its introspection. It's sanity they're talking about. Here it is really talking about not happiness so much, but talking about sanity. Causes of happiness is less important, but the causes of sanity is most important. So you may have to give up a house, or you may have to give a saving or position or whatever, but you will never lose your mind to attachment and vengeance and grudge and vengeful, guilt and resentment and like. That's what it means. When it says, "I will not let my mind to be degenerate," it means I will not let my mind to brood anger and resentment and guilt and resentment and these things, even if I may have to give up those things. And they are not very valuable. The most valuable is non-attachment. Most valuable is lack of ill will. Most valuable is lack of resentment, and most valuable is not forgetting the value of minding the mind. So he says, let me not let my mind be degenerated, because if you lost your mind, those things will not mean anything. People still have material possession. They're millionaires. They have so many things. They have many aircrafts. They have private jets. They have big vessels. They have so many wonderful cars. They have so many houses, beautiful places they live in, so many things. But when they're attached to these, they're angry at their small things. They have lost their mind. So happiness does not come from these things. Sanity comes from non-attachment to them. Yeah? So people who are attached to those things, they think their happiness will come from them. No. They're not better with things. Now they're worse with things. Why? Because they have let the mind degenerated, destroyed by their subservient to those things. They have become enslavement. They have become slave to their glory, wealth, positions, gains, and victories, and status, and whatever, which are all worldly dharmas. They're all cause of future suffering, if not already present suffering. Usually it looks like pretty much a suffering at the beginning. Suffering at the beginning before you acquire it, suffering in your time when you possess it. It's always suffering after suffering after suffering. So why would one let the mind to be degenerated in search of such incessant cause of suffering, So why is he saying this? Because remember, Shantideva was a prince, like Shakyamuni Buddha. He was going to be coronated, soon to become the king. But one day his mother, who is a bodhisattva, female bodhisattva, poured hot water to wash his hair. And how hot water was really hot, hotter than the normal lukewarm water to wash your hair. And when she poured hot water on his head, he complained it was too hot. And then the mother said, "Oh, you think this is very hot, but wait until you become a king, and you will create lots of karma to be born in a hot hell, and you wouldn't have any time to enjoy anything. The hot hell is..." Then, therefore, Shantideva said, "I will never become a king. Why should I become king in such luxury and status? I should rather go and find a way." And then he went to become a monastic. He escaped, basically, and he didn't want to rule the kingdom. So he's talking about such things. One who's losing his mind for property, gain, and status, that is, he says, let those things be lost, let those things be degenerate, let I become completely penniless and so forth, but I not let my mind to be degenerated. So he's actually done it. He's not just writing poem here. He actually did what he wrote. He actually says at the beginning that he wrote this as a form of his own help himself. The note is written to help himself to keep meditating like this. If like-minded people were to discover his text, he says, may this benefit them. So exactly. So he wrote this not as a poem, not as a kind of assignment or competition of a poetry writing. No, he wrote this simply as a self-introspective meditation. He was talking to him how should he guard his mind. Talking about crowd, talking about objects of temptation, talking about wealth, status, body, health, livelihood, income, any kind of... He says, let all of those degenerate, but I will not let this mind to be lost. The mind be lost. That's verse number 22. Yeah. And so all you who would protect your minds, maintain awareness and your mental vigilance. So he says that all of you who wanted to guard your mind with mindfulness and introspection should strive at all cost. And he says, I'll clasp my palms and join my hands, pleading everybody to do just that. So he's talking about not only what he did and what he will do, but he will plead, he will join his hands to everyone. He said, I join my hands in beseeching all of you to do the likewise. So this is what we are doing this to ourselves, saying, please, if you really want to guard your mind with the rope of mindfulness and hook of introspection, strive with great effort to guard your mind. I join my hands for you to do just that. So it's amazing thing is that he's likening to everyone. He knows that everybody needs to gain the skill of strategizing how to train the mind. Yeah, but to train the mind, you have to see your mind. What damaging things it alone has caused in the past. When we didn't know that, we always put our finger and point our other finger to the others, saying, who did this to me? They did this to me. Always, always. People who are not Buddhists always doing this. Always, not necessarily all. There are some good people who has not lost their mind because they are good Christians or good people in general. But majority human beings, you wouldn't be wrong in thinking they're always about telling you who did to them terrible things, and they're always talking about what other people did. He's joining his hands. He says, please. Don't revisit your old, unguarded mind behaviors, but instead, with the rope of mindfulness and hook of introspection, please put all your strenuous effort to guard just your mind. I join my hands to you. He's talking about the greatest benefit. This is the teaching of teaching. He says, I have witnessed the great many different benefit that comes from containing and being able to control your thoughts, being able to control your minds, being able to control your perceptions, as well as being able to control your feelings. And when you can control these, he says, then my purpose of folding my hands to you would have not proven fruitless. So, he wrote this 7th century. In 7th century, 1300 years ago, he wrote this, and his text is translated and written in gold. In Tibet, his texts are written in gold, and I wouldn't be surprised in other places too, there, because we kind of don't know how to print this many books. Those that people wrote, they wrote in gold and silver, ink, and kept in his writing has lived this long, because people have heeded to his joining his hands. Amazing. This textbook is memorized by a huge percentage of Tibetan monastics, even lay people these days, because they're all illiterate. Because they're literate, they can read, but a lot of these texts are written in verses, and people don't know. They have many commentaries. So his whole folding of hands, please, I join my hands for you guys to spend your time to join your hands to guard your mindfulness and your awareness. Because with these two, you will be able to be mindful of your own mind and awareness of checking what the mind is about to make you to say, make you to do. Because if you're introspective, you will see. You can read your mind, and we can read what the thought that you read is about to tell you to say, without knowing what it is actually going to do. But when you're very conscientious, you will know, I don't want to say this, because if I say this, it will hurt him. It's condescending. I can say this, but it will upset the others. When you become mindful, that's exactly, he says, please be mindful what you are thinking, but not let it become words, not let it become written, not let it become shared or posted, because what you're saying is maybe spiteful or negative and half the truth, and all motivated by jealousy and anger and delusions. So don't you ever, lose your control of your mind, and then control your mouth, control your speech, control your body. Then he says, then you have really got the full guardianship of your mind. And to do this, I will join my hands to you to do this. So he's really saying, people, please be kind to yourself. If you're kind to yourself, you will naturally be kind to others. Best way to be kind is mind your mind, mind your emotions, mind your feelings. Don't output just because it is your thought, just because of your opinion, just because your opinion or feelings. People say, what do you feel? Straight away people telling their feelings. As if it's going to benefit everybody. And then they spill over, and then usually there's just an outburst. Basically, all your feelings are outbursts. And he had no idea what his outbursts are going to do. He had no, because That's what Shantideva. I join my hands for you to mind your mind before you outburst, before you share your thoughts and feelings. To whom and why and when, for what purpose is it useful? When you consider all these some fundamental questions, you have heeded to Shantideva. You have really heeded to Shantideva. You don't have to write this text in golden ink. You just heed these lines and just do it. That's probably the most useful way to carving on the rock will not disappear, isn't it? Like, it's much better to carve your rock or mind. It's so hard to pay heed to the things like this. You know? Why is Shantideva's writing so much heeded too? Because every time he wrote it, he said it, he meant it. He prayed, he meditated for months and years before he revealed his writing. He wasn't just writing to write, he wrote so that this will be kind of a useful thing people can discover and read and discover their mind, how to control their mind. So amazing, beautiful request. Beautiful request. You know, he says, I'll join my hands so that all of you will strenuously put effort to guard your mind with mindfulness and introspection. You know, mindfulness and introspection. Verse number 24 goes to say, those who suffer ill health are helpless and powerless to act. The mind, when likewise cramped by ignorance, is impotent and cannot do its work. So he's likening the example of people who are usually very strong and able, but when they get sick, you can see they can't even get up. They can't do anything. Their voice couldn't project voice. They couldn't do anything. It's just he's completely out of action, they call it. Even the illnesses make the person out of action. He's completely effectless, powerless, and useless, and cannot perform his duty, you know. And likewise, if this very mind is disturbed, you know, agitated by jealousy, by greed, by anger, by heresy, by what they say, and confusion and ignorance. If you let your mind to be agitated by these things, it's worse than the diseased person. Diseased person has just couple of illness symptoms, and it's only physical symptoms. And he take the pill in a few days, and he's been normal. The one who's completely agitated by his anger, his resentment, his doubt, his paranoia, his misunderstanding. Yeah, lots more. If his mind is agitated, misunderstanding, let him. He's completely effectless. He's powerless. Yeah, he's impotent. He's impotent and cannot do his work. You know, his mind cannot remember things. He cannot remember kindness of his parents or whatever. He forget all the good they did. He just remember only few things, and he just keeps spinning his mind about that issue. He's completely cramped by his ignorance, and he just doesn't remember all the other good the person did or person has still part of your life, and he's only lumping up the negative thing. Why? That's how he lost his power. He become completely impotent. He cannot produce his work. He cannot lift his soul, so to speak, you know, because he's completely useless when one whose mind is agitated. Yeah, lots of people are so much emotionally beaten and stressed, and they are so otherwise so capable in their field of knowledge. They're so expert, but when they don't know how to mind the emotions, you wouldn't believe how many huge percentage of people who are otherwise very intelligent, you know, wouldn't do anything harmful wrong to other people, but because their mind is so ravaged from within, they're so thirsty and so hungry, so starving with wisdom and knowledge, but yet they don't have any exposure to correct knowledge and wisdom, you know. And they become completely powerless. They're helpless children, you know. They're grown up 40-year-old men, but they just haven't got even a growth of a 12-year-old person. Why? Because they're so caught in the physical, material world. They never looked at the mind and its well-being, you know. And they're completely powerless. They're crying and weeping and completely pointless teardrops. And always poor me. Always poor me. They definitely have lost their mind. And that's why Shantideva is writing this, so that people do not fall prey to their own lack of mind management. Because this chapter is about mind management. How do you manage your mind? How do you understand your mind? And how do you prevent yourself become so fruitless and so impotent, so kind of, effectless, yeah? Just like a person is physically disabled by disease, the one whose mind is agitated by enmity, anger, resentment, guilt, ungratefulness, forgetfulness of the good, and doubt, fear, misunderstanding, miserliness, all of these things agitate the mind, and then he's completely useless. No use to do anything. Completely powerless to do anything. He can't perform anything because he's got nothing left in him. His mind is completely lost to desire, craving, and competitiveness, and this. So therefore, Shantideva says it is so important to look after the well-being of the mind, well-being of the mind. So those who lack. Next verse number 25. Those who lack the mental introspection, even if they study, even if they contemplate, even if they meditate, it will be like a vase, broken vase, that when you pour the water off, the water will leak from the broken piece, and his mindfulness will not retain anything. So therefore, this is talking about the mind is like water sipping from the leaking vase, and all the learning and knowledge and meditation will all be destroyed when they have lost the introspection. So this is talking about the importance of introspection. Introspection is a routine checking your mind. When you do regular meditation or study, that's what you do. What are you doing? Self-improvement, mind improvement. You don't have to say self-improvement. It's a dirty word, really. Self-improvement, mind improvement. I'm doing mind improvement course. Highest education is improving the mind. It doesn't mean the mind is something wrong, but it has lost its potency to negativity. So we need to just bring back, rejuvenate them. We need to revitalize the mind, so that this revitalization of the mind will regain his introspection. Without the introspection, the mind that lacks the introspection, even his studies, meditate, he's learned it in various things, it's just like a leaking vase. No matter how many water you pour in the water vase, it will leak from the bottom because there's no introspection. So if you're learning something like Shantideva was saying here, he says we should have introspection, meaning every morning you do a check. Half a dozen times a day. That's right. Half a dozen times a day checking whether you have altruism, whether you have kindness, whether you have gratefulness, whether you have respect, whether you have contentment. You just check. Just like airplane after the airplane land, before it flies, the engineer comes and we have a quick check. I don't know how many of the points they check, They definitely check through all, and then he gives a thumbs up. Then only the pilot flies. Like that, And an airplane introspection is good because it's not just the pilot. He's got the other inspectors, other mechanics, and come and check. And then only when they give thumb up, they're allowed to fly, So therefore, there's hardly any aircraft disasters. Why? Because there's so many teams, so many staff, so many engineers, so many aerodynamic, so many aeronautic engineers are working around the clock to read, to check, to detect, so that it is fit to fly and take those 200 passengers to Brisbane again. It just came from there carrying other passengers. He has to go back and carry another poor airplane. Likewise, we have to make sure the mind is fit enough. So if we don't check the mind like that, we don't have introspection. So that's why in Buddhism we do, it's called 6 session yoga. You should practice refuge, at least refuge in bodhicitta. I mean, this refuge in bodhicitta is profound. And these are not some elementary practice. These are profound teachings. If you just take refuge 6 times a day, and revise your bodhicitta 6 times a day. That means you could be doing every 4 hours, which is really good. Muslims pray 5 times a day. Why can't Buddhists inspect their mind 6 times a day? Of course, Muslim wouldn't mind. We are doing more than them. They're doing 5 times. They pray 5 times a day. We inspect 6 times a day. Yeah, maybe we have a good reason to do additional one, because we don't rely on the God who will help you. Isn't it? Our sixth God is our own introspection. They have the Allah to pray to 5 times, but Buddhists have to pray, meditate, review their bodhicitta. Definitely, and I'm not making it up, reason is then you have done the routine introspection. So you have to write down a few things. You have bodhicitta, you have kindness, you have compassion, you have tolerance, you have non-judgment, you have joy, you have appreciation, you have gratitude. Check all the things you have or not, and check all the negative thoughts that you're keeping. If you just make sure you don't have them in your pocket, they'll detect when you go through the gate. Boom, gate. They beep, 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 they wouldn't let you go in, like that. So you got to check. You got to check. So otherwise, it's like a vase, leaking vase, He said, no matter what you study, what are you going to say? We listen to Shantideva. We read these verses, How much of this you will remember? How much of this you will make sure you employ? So if you make a habit of reciting both refuge and bodhicitta prayer 6 times a day, pretty good. Because then we are, he says, with those without introspection. Introspection means routine checkup, routine checking, routine checking, routinely checking. Those who don't have a routine and discipline to check themselves, they will lose them like a leaking vase. So you will not be able to keep them because you don't have a routine checker. That routine checker is called introspection or vigilance. Usually people hold a vigil to protest something. We want their plight or their demand to be met. You hold a vigil. You should have a vigil. Hold a vigil to yourself, so that you don't suffer from the leakage of all the other virtues because of the lack of introspection. Even if you had a good day, but still check how was the day. Was it really maybe not so negative, but maybe a little sort of puffed up with arrogance or something. Maybe you're so haughty. I'm great. I'm genius. Oh, I'm so good at this. Very, very dangerous. Very dangerous to think I'm very good at it. Are you sure this is pride or this is confidence, or do you know which is which? It looks both very similar. So you got to check whether they are humility or it's confidence with humility, or arrogance without noticing you're arrogant. So if you notice that, your introspection will check which is positive emotion, which is destructive emotions. Which is destructive. You should have a system of checking, routine checking. Routine checking. Yeah. Many have devotion, perseverance, and also learn it, endow with faith. So this is talking about people. Many people have this, but through the fault of lacking introspection, will not escape the stain of downfall. But even if people have studied, they have faith, they're diligent, and they are they do meditation. But if they don't have the awareness what they're doing all the above four, which is introspection, due to lack of introspection, which means checking the checker again. In Singapore and Thailand is very good. The airport, one guy checks the passport. One guy checks us again. So actually got 2 or 3 people, 2 or 3 people checking. Very good. I don't think they will miss. Otherwise, I don't think they really check to, who knows whose passport you carry. Who will look at of the 300 passengers one by one carefully, That's like that, It's just look at it, bring a fresh eye and have a look. Because it's always assuming that you are fine. It's not, you know. Then recently the whole idea of checking your ID has become a little bit more stricter. You go to some clubs, you just show your membership, or they think that's it, and they don't even look with on the number. These days they look closely, take a photo, because they'll make sure that who is through contact tracing or something. They make sure that they actually got the details like that. You have to be very careful in checking. Where is safe to go? What is how easy it is for you to contract the disease if you go to the hot spots, So that's what they call hot spot. You got to know where the hot spots in New South Wales. Where the hot spots, wrong idea. This one is not hot spots, dangerous spots. I don't know hot spot what it means. It looks like to me dangerous spots. Yeah, dangerous spot. The places there are a lot of disease carrier. You shouldn't go there, isn't it? That's the kind of thing, People talking about, they have relaxation. Everybody go and eat again, out again, and then they all got infected. Like that. One has to make sure. This is the introspection. How do we make sure that how we do not give rise to a little bit of contemptuous mind or angry mind, arrogant mind, and you wouldn't know how quickly that turned to be very dangerous and destructive to your well-being. So it's the likelihood of you falling, likelihood of you transgressing your introspection is very great, because it's a slight slippage of your awareness. You will lose your attention. It's just like enemies waiting to attack you. Yeah, our weakness is so easy to stifle us. So we must make sure there's no rooms allowed to be left undetected. So that's why all the downfalls will occur in spite of all those other qualities. Lack of introspection is like a thief who slinks behind when mindfulness abates. So, thieves are always waiting. He's checking what time you come in, what time you go, did you lock the back door? He's always checking. He's much more careful, because they have to be very introspective to steal people's things. So elsewhere, Buddha said we should act like thieves. We should walk mindfully or something like that, for right reasons. Lack of vigilance is like a thief who slinks behind when mindfulness abates. Yeah. So even you have a little bit of mindfulness, saying your house should be kept and your door, but with just a little moment that you didn't get to, you went to the front house and he just slipped in through the back door. He just comes in. But if you're vigilant to block the back door before you go to the front room, so something like that, that would be good. It doesn't take for long for them to just sneak in and do something harmful. And all the merits we have gathered in, he steals, and down we go to lower realms. So it's talking about like the thief, like that. Yeah. The thief of the affliction is so sneaky, so good at hide and seek, And when we are slightly, slinks into something, they will take advantage of that. And they will rob all the virtues you have took years to build or cultivate by instantaneous reaction and rash reaction by you. So, therefore, be vigilant in terms of not tempted to say what you want to say, react the way you want to react, but make sure that you don't react and say whatever comes to your mind, because otherwise you will be thefted by your own lack of introspection. And then what would you have? You'll be completely robbed of your joy, of your friendship, of your humility, of your status, or whatever. You all be lost and stolen by this thief that you didn't know that came that manage to rob you as it is lack due to the slackness of your introspection or lack of your introspection, lack of your introspection, and you will fall down very low. Therefore, from the gateway of awareness, from the gateway of yes, your mind should always be the guardian at the door of your mind. It's just like a person who's minding the gate. He's minding the gate. You have to mind the gate of awareness. Mind the gate of awareness. Gate of awareness. And mind should not let become weak. Let not the mindful not become leave to stray. Don't let the mindfulness to become go and stray. Because if you will make sure you're always there, There's always a security guard changing, yeah? Sometimes the thief comes in between they're changing. The guy who just came in is getting started, and then between he was getting that they came. They are always looking such opportunities, So likewise, you should not let yourself straying off your mindfulness. And because if your mindfulness wanders, it shall be recalled. Means you should bring it back. You should make sure the mind is not lost, and you should bring it back by thought. Because if it wanders, it shall be recalled by thoughts of anguish in the lower world. Because you should bring back by the fear of the consequences that one will suffer and later due to the lack of this introspection and mindfulness now. So almost you will need to warn yourself by standing at the gateway of your mind awareness and saying you better not lose your attention. If you lose, there will be terrible consequences on this and the next life. So when your mindfulness is warning you of how much time and energy you will lose, how much goodness you have practiced in the past will be go down the drain. So you need to almost like warn yourself of the severe consequences of losing your mind. Next verse, and those who endow with devotion and good fortune, mindfulness will be cultivated easily. So when you are always close to noble friends and those who have a little bit of a maturity and growth, the more you rely and depend on them, the more you will learn those good skills from them. And through fear of the consequences, to respect to the mindfulness, the counsels that you hear from your friends and mentors, and straying ever in the teacher's company. So it means you should not reduce the company of your good friends, because if the company that you spend time with those mentors, their influence will remain strong, and you will that much become more empowered to remain vigilant and mindful. So if you are instead spending time accompanying not so thoughtful people who are indulging, who are negative, who are materialistic, and who are anti-spirituality, and who are decadent, if you do that, then I don't want to spend this much time doing this sort of thing with these people at all, even once a week. This is not necessary, because you're introspective. Such influence is straying yourself from the path. So do not lose your mind to such company, but instead you should accompany and associate your closeness to the noble friends and the spiritual companies, and with the fear of losing your mind, and with the respect to the benefit that you earn from such company, you should not lose your mindfulness, and therefore mindfully ration time for yourself, how much you give your time to do things like listening to Dharma, studying Dharma, reading Dharma, practicing the meditation if you become much more vigilant, if you become much more strict to employ and allocate your time, and you honor that, if you're doing this regularly, see, you're not losing your mind. You learn them, you listen to them, you read, you know, and now you're paying attention to how to possess yourself with these disciplines. If you have these, then you have earned the benefit of noble friends, and almost like you are in the company of good friends in you that previously wasn't there so mature enough to rely upon. So therefore, but until such a kind of maturity yields in us, that who doesn't need to depend on others, we should always make a periodical or regular kind of commitment to associate, to study, to learn, to practice. Then your mindfulness, your introspection will be respectful through this task, and as a result of that, you can see how it improves and increase your fitness to maintain the mindfulness, and particularly introspection. Because if you don't have a fear of losing them, you probably will lose them. If you don't respect them, you probably have no need to keep it in yourself. So if you have a fear of losing the good and respecting the thing that you're learning the good, and therefore out of respect to the teaching, you want to top up regularly. Out of respect of losing them, you want to restrain from likely company or influence of others whose influences will wear you out. So because of that, you fortunately have a positive fear from the negative, and good honor and respect to the positive, and therefore your mindfulness is secured, and therefore it will not neglect your spiritual well-being. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas both possess unclouded vision, seeing everything. So Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have this amazing unclouded vision. So their mind and teachings is ever so crazy because they can see everything. Everything lies open to their gaze, you know. So Buddhas and Bodhisattvas always can see you and yourself. So therefore you should think, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas always above the sky, watching over my well-being. So you should always think you are being watched. And you are watched by the kind and wise eyes of the Buddha. And so this is what we call Guru Yoga, but it's Buddha Yoga, really. Buddha Yoga. You have to have Buddha Yoga is a cause of mindfulness introspection. Therefore, they say during the day, think of the Buddha on your head, you know, and during the night when you go to sleep, imagine the Buddha is in your heart. So why you have to visualize Buddha on the head? It is for the sake of instrumentalizing that you are mindful and introspective, that you have the Buddha always watching your head, over your head. You are in their presence, so therefore you better behave yourself. You better don't say this, better don't do that, better don't think like that. If you have that, of course, it's like you always have this. If you tracker, if you have the tracker, Buddha tracks your movement. Buddha is tracking your movement. Not only where you physically go, but what you're thinking. You know, always think of that on your head. In the presence of these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, who's always omniscient, who are always omniscient, think that you're always in their watchful eyes. It's amazing mindfulness. This is why we put Buddha's drawings or paintings or tankas or statues in order to pay due respect to them, and in their presence, you would not do such a thing. You wouldn't do anything like that. Also, Buddhas are not just the walls or the statues. Buddhas are, omnisciently hovering over us because they have made vows to guard and to guide, to watch over us, so long as we are ourselves subscribing. You have to register your faith. If you register your faith, then you're registered. You have taken refuge, you have registered yourself a devotee, and then you will see all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in your presence. Amazing. This is psychology of how do you put an instrument of vigilance with yourself. Some people say, parents gone, now we can do whatever we like, Some people do that. That one should not think like that. Parents had to put on camera in every room. then the children will realize they cannot do naughty things. They couldn't use things, do things, whatever is not appropriate. Like that, we should introspectively think that I am in the presence of the holy ones who are all omniscient, and therefore they always, because we have registered our faith, and they know we are online, so to speak. So therefore, we must feel their presence, and in their watchful eyes, the presence of their kindness and wisdom and compassion and inspiration, we too should always be in close contact with the watchful guidance, inspiration, the enlightened ones. So this is how you employ your mind to become mindful. He says, the one who has such thought as these, one who's able to train his mind, things like that. Now he's introspective, isn't it? Introspective will gain devotion and a sense of fear and shame. Yeah. So being able to think that you are under the watchful eyes and presence of the enlightened ones before you, you will be able to show due respect and fear for your own safety. For such a one, the memory of Buddha rises frequently before his mind. So for him to think of the Buddha, he knows Buddha is omniscient one. He's always compassionate one. And thinking that he is always watchful makes yourself more watchful. Amazing. Yeah. Mindfulness of making yourself very vigilant. Talking about how to become vigilant through the presence and kindness of the blessings of the Buddha. That's why we deliberately visualize merit field when we formally do the practices and do therefore prayers and whatever in front of them. But Shantideva is saying you should do this wherever you are. We should always, wherever you are, you should always see the Buddha is you are in the presence of the watchful eyes of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So that you don't slip your mindfulness, and therefore be very, very cautious and mindful and thoughtful, that you out of respect, out of devotion, and fear of yourself not for forgetting them, and shame of the consequences that will cause if you forget the introspection. This is how you employ introspection. I think so. We will stop here tonight. Thank you, everybody. So it's very, very powerful image of having the Buddha in the space above us always. It's a mindfulness of keeping the introspection alive. So it's not as though that you have one moment you're mindful, another moment you're sort of like a tiger out of the den type of thing. No, so we have to be mindful. The Buddha is always in this, omniscient ones are always in the space above. So mindfulness and introspection of the Buddha's presence in the omniscient mind, because they have vision, eyes of vision anyway. Through their compassion, they'll guard me, they'll protect me. I will not go to wrong places. I will not do wrong things, and so on and so forth. When you have that, see, this greatly increases your self-reliance of being introspectively guarding your mind by imagining the presence of the enlightened ones as a witness of what your thoughts, words, and deeds are like. So that's a very, very powerful image of the introspection. Thank you very much for everyone for giving your time, coming and listening to these teachings. And of course, we have all mutually benefit from this very teaching. Not only the time we spent listening and thinking, but subsequently, some of these ideas we need to implement. There were times like one Indian master, when debating with his Hindu kind of opponent or debate, and one of them said, I think it's Manjushri said, you should visualize me above your head, facing towards the opponent when you debate. He says, yes. When he did that, his his debate, he won. Otherwise, he was a little bit intimidated by his opponent at times. He was a little bit shivering during a break or something. Then, and in the break, Manjushri said, "You should visualize me on top of your head and facing towards the opponent." Because previously he was visualizing Manjushri, but Manjushri was over the other side looking towards him. So like that, sometimes just think that you have a lot of goodness behind you. You have the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas give you blessings, and you will not raise your arms or raise your voice or do anything violent or untoward at all. Even in the thought, you will restrain your bad thoughts about anyone. And why? Because Buddha can not only see your hand and words, but he can read your mind. When you can do that, that's how the refuge is. Refuge, we deliberately have tankas and images. Of course, we don't really need tankas and images for them to see, but they always can see. But for beginners, it's good to have tankas and some images before us in order to enable us to remember that we are always in the watchful eyes of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to give us guidance, not to punish us, not to like that. A little bit of fear is okay, but mainly not that kind of fear, but hope and mindfulness, devotion makes you to see their presence, can greatly increase our introspection, and therefore mindfulness of learning to stay tender and loving and caring and gracious towards each other, both not just in actions and words, but deep down in your thoughts about other people. Even they are really, really angry at you, but you're still gentle, kind towards them. May they be well, may they be free of any anxiety and enmity. Whatever karmic predisposition is right now in their situation, may these too will change. For you do not emit any ill will towards them, you're only loving kindness. If you have that, these are the sort of, what he says is this, and maybe you lose everything, but you don't lose your mind. And so, therefore, we'll do the dedication of merits and think of everyone else who could greatly benefit if they too were to lend their ears or become exposed to this body of mental strategy of how to secure usefulness of being alive and benefit to each other. Ocean above the Senate, Herenda Mahayana teaching, whatever mere I have agro, meho bebe constellavas, to the Mahayana teaching, courage, manju shinewade, Azama da badra de la following all the example. I shall dedicate all the merit, excellent Bodhisattva, Teba Vedanaya danza, that has been bomb freely without generation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.